You're listening to the DVM Podcast Empire. Now with over 1 million downloads.
1 million downloads.
Find us online at DVMPE.com.
100% free.
1,000,000% fan.
And now,
Push the button.
Is it possible that we have permitted ideology, political and economic philosophies, and governmental policies to keep us from considering the very real, everyday problems of our people?
So what if my feelings are hurt? Does that give me the right to prevent others from expressing their opinions?
Wait a second, Doc. Are you telling me this sucker is nuclear?
Hey, can you push the button?
Do not touch that button.
Hey, can you push the button?
Do not touch that button.
Hey, can you push the button?
Do not touch that button.
Mr. Anderson.
Don't push it.
Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Push the Button, your number one podcast for all things that get you hot, even though we tell you not to. I am your host, David Vox Mullen.
And I'm your other host, Mr. Anderson, and I gotta say it because I've always wanted to say it, and it's never been more appropriate than right now. And I'm in a hotel room, so people are probably going to get mad around me, but at least it's the middle of the day. But here goes nothing. Good morning, Vietnam!
Oh, so fitting, and fantastic, and wow. Yeah, well, let's right off the bat, let's talk about the top news of the week. Absolutely the loss of a great entertaining icon, the great Robin Williams. Where were you when you heard the news, man?
I was actually sitting on my couch at home up in my man cave, and it just, I was watching the news, and it just, it happened to come across. Like, it was just crazy. It was at the end of one news segment, and it was like a parting shot. By the way, we just heard this, we just have this breaking news right now, and then it was at the top of the next
block.
News block, yeah. So, just crazy, man. I immediately I got goosebumps right now thinking about it.
It hits you, yeah.
So,
I mean,
it's weird because we experience this kind of stuff all the time. People are dying. People die every day.
Right.
And there's such a large quantity of entertainers out there that it's inevitable that, we're going to lose these guys from time to time. And I don't know. This one particularly hit me, though, because I remember as a little kid watching Mork and Mindy and everything else that he's done since then. It's just amazing. In the last couple of years, I think he sort of got a kind of a bad rap. People made fun of him. And people sort of, Family Guy, which is one of my favorite shows, picked on him religiously.
Yeah.
They, in fact, dedicated a whole episode to, making fun of how annoying he could be at times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to defend Family Guy, but at the same time, it's, if they're not making fun of you, then you're not doing your job.
Yeah, no. And I still think that episode is extremely funny. And,
It's hard, we, with all the podcasting I do with the DVM Podcast Empire, we do a lot of TV show stuff. So when the word came through the wire that his show, The Crazy Ones, got canceled, I remember thinking, oh, that sucks. That sucks for him. And he was, he was shooting that here in Chicago. So that was, you enjoy comedy. You're an entertainer. I'm a comedian, and he's one of the godfathers. That's really all there is to it. He's one of the founding fathers of modern comedic timing, especially improvising, which is something that I'm really heavily into. And I think the fact that it kind of hit us the way it did and it hurts a little bit means he did a good job his whole career.
Absolutely.
I was making dinner, and on my iPhone I've got those Apple doesn't sponsor this podcast, but they should. On my iPhone, I have Associated Press feeds hit me. because it's hard. The news is so biased one way or the other. So I use the AP to at least get the raw data as close to raw unbiased as I can get, even though I know they're sometimes a little biased. But when that thing hit me, I think I was making hamburgers in the kitchen, and it just went off, and I was like, wait, what? Your brain kind of does this weird double take.
Yeah.
Like, did I really just read that?
Yeah.
And, then it just hit me, bang. And, it sucks. It sucks because I personally feel he had a lot more to give. But, I mean, sure, there's going to be haters out there, but that's, whatever. But me personally, not that he only does it for me, but I'm sure he does it for people like me. But I can't think of a single project he's been on that I didn't enjoy. Comedic or drama. You know what I mean?
Just a particularly big fan of Hook, maybe.
I loved Hook. I thought it was great. But that's what I mean. It's like nothing here's the thing. And I know people always, have comments about him always being on, quote unquote, on, so that, you never really got to know the real Robin. But
the real Robin.
Yeah, I mean, realistically it is. But whenever you see him or know he's involved, you immediately kind of know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And some would say that's a bad thing. I would argue that's a good thing because it's joy, it's happiness, it's laughter, it's smiling. He always made me laugh, and it's great.
He brought that same ability to just riff and improvise to some serious roles too.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't just comedic.
He was in that what was that? Insomnia, the Chris Nolan film with Al Pacino. He wasn't even billed in the beginning credits. So if you didn't know anything about the movie, you didn't even know he was the main bad guy in the movie, and it was amazing. He played Dark really well too, which I'm sure people can theorize about.
The guy that had all the pictures on his wall.
1 hour photo.
1 hour photo. Yeah.
My wife and I saw that I think when we were dating, and we were blown away. I mean, he's such a great entertainer. Period.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a great loss. It hurts. It sucks. But we move on,
But luckily we have, through the power of DVD and those kinds of mediums, we're able to continue.
It's funny because my immediate reaction is, now I want to watch a bunch of Robin Williams stuff. But then there's that part of me that's like, I'm not ready to do that yet. It's weird. Maybe I'm just getting too sensitive. I don't know. I'll get over it.
Yeah.
But God bless you, Robin, or universe bless you, Robin.
Allah bless you.
Yeah.
And I want to, this popped into my head, and it's something that I sort of question from time to time. And I think it can be answered similarly from both sides. Okay, so was Robin religious or not?
I don't know. I think ultimately I can only speak for what I know of Christianity. But what I know of Christianity is it doesn't matter what someone necessarily says outwardly. It's the condition of their heart, and only they and God know.
Right.
So who knows?
And I sort of wonder, now, the religious can say that skeptics or secularists or atheists have no reason to continue living, right? Like, if life has no ultimate purpose, if there's no higher...
I don't know if I'd call that religious or just assholes.
Well, but this is a pretty common...
I know in your mind sometimes they're one and the same, I know.
This is a pretty common theme. I mean, this is not like a fringe belief. This is a very mainstream common belief that, hey, I don't know how you can live your life not believing that there's something after you die. And I sort of wonder, I guess from my perspective, if I truly and sincerely believe that this is literally just the waiting room for the big party, and that no matter what I do, as long as I'm sincerely apologetic and sorry about it, and that I believe that Jesus died on the cross for our sins, that I'm going to get I'm going to gain admission to this giant party in the afterlife. What keeps me from killing myself?
Yeah, I used to wonder that same kind of stuff when I was younger, and I will unfortunately say that there is still no clear answer for me. But to me, I have no problem with anybody who doesn't believe in any type of afterlife, and I don't know exactly what the afterlife is really supposed to be, other than, I mean, for me personally, it's if I believe that there's a heaven and I believe that there's a hell, and if I believe that being in hell would be a separation from God, who I believe is my creator, then I don't want that separation. As far as, the lofty things that I've heard about what heaven would be described by people who have claimed to have crossed over and come back, and there's so many different things that I even am somewhat skeptical about, not even just biblical stuff, but to me, I honestly can say I'm not sure what it's going to be like, if it's going to be like anything at all.
You're going to be playing in fields of wheat and singing songs.
Right. I could be like Gladiator,
Which is funny. Mark Twain said something to the effect of,
I was fine before I was born?
No, well...
Because you mentioned that in the other show, which I thought was great.
But he also said something to the effect, I'm going to butcher this, but he said, things that we would find annoying to do in this life are suddenly supposed to seem amazing and wonderful, and we're going to spend eternity doing them in the afterlife.
Right.
Singing songs of praise to somebody and, laying around in the grass looking up at the sky.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure, we get that information, and I'm sure there's scholars out there who are going to yell at me. And you know what? Yell at me. Tell me. Teach me. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Yep.
But I know that we get that information from references that have been in the books that were collected, that were formed in the Bible. And I don't know if I take that as literal as it has been delivered, or as in, like one of the many wonderful things about the afterlife without sin are these things that you can experience. But again, I spend very little time worrying about it. I really do. I'm more focused on. It's almost. I don't want to offend any Buddhists, but it's almost like a Buddhist Christianity mentality of, if I'm going to get there, I'll get there when I get there. I'm worried about today. I'm worried about the now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
And I'm worried about what I can do while I'm here, and I really do. How do I word this to save my Christianity credibility? I'm a big subscriber to, because I believe in God, I do believe I have a purpose here. And so what that purpose may specifically be, I don't know. All I know is that how I live my life, and this is where I'm sure you and I differ. How I live my life is I say, okay, God, I've got all these talents, which I ascribe to Him. And I say, okay, you've made me this way. I'm exactly how you wanted me to be, and I can do all these things because it's what you've created in me. What do you want me to do with them? And so I get, little things that I, ascribe to, God's word, or I believe as God leading, or His will, or whatever, to help one another, or to build up, or to entertain, or to educate, or to just love and be there for somebody, things like that. That's about the simplistic way I can point out how I move forward, how I progress in the carcass that I'm living in. But beyond that, I really don't spend much time going, is this going to get me into heaven? Is this going to send me to hell? Is this, I don't think like that.
Yeah, I think you're different than a lot of people, though. I think there are
sure.
who are fatalists, who are eschatology. They're big into eschatology, and this is something that's sort of popped up more so over the last couple of years. Like, people are really into eschatology, the end times, and
here's the thing. When I first started really committing my life to being a Christian, and I started reading the Bible, and this was probably in the 80s, when I really started paying attention to, like, the Book of Revelation, and everybody starts talking about the end of the world and all that. The one thing that stuck with me when I thought I started seeing signs everywhere was, I don't remember if it was my mom or a pastor. Somebody somewhere said, you know, even the disciples of Christ were expecting it around every corner.
Yeah.
So that does kind of...
I will return within your lifetime. That the end of the world will come within your lifetimes to his disciples.
Yeah, I think the actual quote was something of the effect of, the generation that sees all these signs comes to pass will not pass until I return. So that gets really gray. But again...
I'm pretty sure, I can look this up, but there was a specific mention of, I will return within your lifetimes.
Right. Well, and biblically, I think Christ returned a handful of times after the resurrection, if I'm right. Shows how long it's been since I've been reading up, but I will. I will.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, there are a lot of people who believe that the prophecies that were in the New Testament that Christ made about the end times were depicting Rome, where Nero basically, playing the fiddle as Rome burned type thing. A lot of scholars believe that the prophecies that Jesus made about, the end was about Rome. Again, that's a whole nother deep jump we'd have to make and to dig into the history and all that stuff. But again, that just goes to serve to confirm even more why I don't spend too much time worrying about it. A lot, and here's the thing.
Well, I just wonder though. And I think you're a lot different. Like I keep saying this, but you're different than a lot of people in that I think you think a lot deeper.
Maybe I have more hope in the human race that I just wish that they would be more like me. I really do believe that there's a lot more people like me. I just wish they had a voice. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, totally. Agreed. But the bigger picture, the question I have is, are there a lot of people out there who don't share your same beliefs?
I know that's true. I know that there's people who don't believe like me.
Robin Williams sit there, say he's a believer. Just you don't have to say Robin Williams, anybody for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
They're contemplating this suicide, death, and you know what? This is just a blink of an eye in this large, grand picture, in this long continuum. Why don't I just check out now and check into the party, to the big party?
Yeah, I totally understand that, and I used to ask the same question, and it sucks that I can't remember the answers I was given, because I was given answers that made sense when I was younger. And apparently they made so much sense that I just stopped thinking about them for 10, 15, 20 years. So I don't remember what it was. And I'll ask some other people too, because I think it's a question worth having asked. Not that I think we're going to get a clear answer from anybody, because nobody is the authority but God, and God hasn't been very clear, I feel, on that particular issue. I mean, the only time I can think of that suicide was referenced so blatantly was Judas, who hung himself after betraying Christ. But I do remember also reading, I think it was in Revelation, that there was something like there were 12 gates or something to represent all 12 of the disciples or something, which in my mind would have included Judas. So, there's that level of, I feel much safer going, I don't friggin' know. And it's much easier to go, you know what, I don't get it, is that even something that science needs to worry about? So it's not a God versus science thing. It's let's just worry about now, what we can do for today and the future.
Yes.
But no, what you're asking is a very fair and valid question. And
if heaven is supposed to be the greatest, the ultimate in happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my wife,
I think where we run into trouble, Ken, is when we weigh them out and go, okay, it's the choice between a heaven in which I don't know and a lifetime in reality on earth here, which according to religious people, sometimes they make the mistake of saying it's all evil and bad and it's not good. Yes, I do believe that sin is in the world, but at the same time, I think that it's still something that God created, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's...
Wait, sin is a beautiful thing?
No, the world.
Oh, the world.
Like living in this existence, this reality. I mean, we're going to get real deep, okay? I mean, like this consciousness, this awareness, this us being us. Mm-hmm. I think it's a beautiful thing. Yes, sin is involved, but I don't think it's... As far as where I'm coming from as a Christian, sin is involved, but it's not, you get like the people like the Westboro Baptist Church, and they're just like, God hates fags, and, you're going to hell, and it's like, don't you people smile? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like this, the world has sin in it. I get it. And to an atheist, it's, bad shit happens. Mm-hmm. But it's not like there isn't good stuff that's worth living for. Does that make any sense?
No, it does. I think people, there's good stuff worth living for, and I sort of subscribe to the belief that our founding fathers had in that, or many of our founding fathers had, that if there is to be any kind of afterlife, it's how we leave this earth and how we interact with and it's how you raise your children. When I die, hopefully my kids will carry on something that I left behind.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
No, it makes total sense. And I definitely agree with that. It's one of those things where, and those guys, I mean, how is it that they seem so smart and together, and we are so divisive and confused?
Because we're watching the fucking Kardashians.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's just it, man. We're eating our Big Macs. We're watching our football games. That's what it is.
The knowledge is not important to people anymore because there's other people out there.
It's not important because it's always available. I can Google it. If I want to know, I'll Google it. Until then, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And then we just get lazy.
It doesn't affect me. Really, if you want to nowadays, you can just chill.
Yeah.
If you don't want to work, you can still eke out a pretty good existence on this earth, especially in America, if you just want to sit back and chill.
Yeah.
You don't have to work.
Yeah, we'll pay for it.
You don't have to be educated. Yeah. Somebody will pay for it.
That's a whole nother conversation. But hey, we can talk about it. Today's a free-form episode. Although we did want to do this episode specifically to thank you, the listeners, for helping us, turn this show into one of the most popular shows on our network. You guys are awesome, and we ask you to, reach out to us on Twitter, which a lot of you have. Thank you for that. Facebook is great. You can email us, pushthebuttonpodcast@gmail.com. We've actually had some people, they want to know some certain things, and say if you're down, I'd like to maybe turn this into a little bit of a Q&A type thing if you're up for it.
Reach into the old mailbag there.
Let's reach into the old mailbag. We won't do a lot of this. I mean, obviously we get so many emails. It's so hard to read them all. But why are you laughing? No, I'm just kidding.
I just remembered a funny joke that Robin Williams said one time. So yeah.
Well, what was it?
It just passed through my brain again.
Oh, here you go. Well, we get a lot of response from a lot of wrestling fans, obviously, sure. And we definitely. We appreciate you. And one fan in particular we want to definitely point out, his name is Scott. Scott is a big Mr. Anderson fan. And he first of all, he just wants to know that you are aware that he's out here listening to the show.
Yes, I do, and I appreciate Scott very much, as I do all my fans. At the end of the day, I'm just a dude. I'm just a guy who happens to have what I consider to be a pretty cool job, and apparently other people do too. So for people to sort of hold me in that regard is still sort of weird to me, but weird in a good way. I appreciate it, and I go out there and I try to give 100% every time that I'm out there, as I do here on this podcast. So I appreciate you, Scott, and anybody out there like you.
And Scott, I have met Ken. He is a real dude, so that's totally neat. We got an email from, who's this from? This is from Randy. Randy says, "Hey, Ken and David, I have a question that I'd love to hear you guys answer or discuss on a future religion-themed episode. Do animals have souls? Or will all dogs go to heaven, if you wish to entertain my humor? I am not sure if there is a clear and definitive answer on the subject. If there is, I'd love to hear it. It's always been a topic that seems to be one-sided depending on whether the person responding was a pet owner or not. If I were asked the very same question, my answer would be, I certainly hope so, but maybe you two could chime in and give us your thoughts. Thanks, Randy Lee, RD Lee on Twitter." Thanks, R. Randy. I don't know, Ken, what do you think? He's like, well, first I have to believe there's a heaven.
Well, first I have to believe that there's souls.
Ooh, yeah. Let's dig into that. Let's dig into that. What the heck do we have? What is this consciousness thing that we have?
Sam Harris talks about souls and this issue in one of his books called A Letter to a Christian Nation, where he talks about the idea that a soul enters, zygote at conception, right?
Okay.
Into that when a sperm and an egg meet, that's when the soul is encapsulated in this embryo, if you will.
Sure.
But then you run into, so that embryo can then split into any number of embryos. So then you get a division of souls. Mm-hmm. And then at points, some of those embryos can actually fuse back together in what's called a chimera. Mm-hmm. And so do you have two souls then becoming one?
That would explain personality. That's a joke, people.
Multiple personality, that's what it is. So, I don't know. I think the idea is rather, I don't believe in it. I don't believe that there are souls. And if there are, heaven's got to be a really, 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 really big place, teeming with, you just think about all the animals in our, in this billions of years of existence.
Yeah, from all time, yeah.
That are all in heaven right now.
Okay, so
for those people who don't believe in Christ.
So it's a default answer for you because you don't even believe in souls.
Right.
Okay. So here's the thing, and I've been able to kind of function in my daily life without my head exploding too bad, putting soul on consciousness, and not just consciousness, but aware, like self-aware consciousness. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, and I love to just sit down, sometimes with a drink, and just ponder, how in the world that we as a creature, came from, however you want to describe our early beginnings, but to man who builds roads and skyscrapers and villages and cities and space stations and goes to the moon, and you know what I mean? Like just and how we look in a mirror and we see ourselves and we, like that, what is that? You know what I mean? Like that consciousness that we have. It's got to be far beyond just electrical charges going back and forth in your brain. Maybe not, but I think if you want to really dig into religion and belief in a higher power, I think that's where a lot of it comes from. Is that, well, what in the world? How come I'm thinking? How come I can touch my fingers and my face and feel and know and understand and do math, and, you know what I mean, and function.
Well, and neuroscientists will break that down for you and tell you exactly why those things happen and why that.
Well, I understand that there's synapses and things like that, but still, there's just the just the ability to communicate, and the ability to understand and reason and just function to a degree.
I personally don't have any less awe or wonder.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe in those things. I mean, those things that you just talked about are amazing and they're crazy. And the reality is, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, what the hell do we call that? We call it consciousness.
I'm okay with sort of not knowing.
Yeah.
I'm interested to find out more, but.
It's interesting that you say that, because we obviously kind of ride this similar parallel line.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I don't know. I don't know if animals have souls or not. I mean, if we're going from a place of believing in souls and an eternity, and obviously if an animal dies, does its being, does its consciousness somehow transcend into whatever that is? I don't know.
And if our souls are supposedly eternal, how is it that virtually all of us, that this is the first time that we can remember being in the universe? Why don't we have past memories of...
Well, and just to throw a wrench in the machine, there are people who believe that they do.
For baby souls? Yeah, and those are called crazy people.
Sometimes, yeah. Depends on who's pointing the finger, but yeah.
Right, but by most people, I would say that those people are called crazy. Right or wrong.
Yeah.
That's the way our society looks at those people.
Yeah. Well, I know people think I'm crazy. I know you kind of think I'm crazy.
That I'm crazy. So.
Oh, man, that was a good one. Well, thanks for the email. Sorry we couldn't answer your question, but let's be honest. Did you really expect us to answer it? What else we got? We've got, let's see here. Okay, Scott sends in an email, and he says, "Hey, Scott, this is Scotty Anderson on Twitter, and probably one of Mr. the Ken Anderson's biggest fans. Thanks for being my fan, Scott. First, I wanted to say, Ken, my boy, how's it going? My question to you is, what's your thoughts on this crazy, not-so-insane deal with Dixie Carter screwing things up with Spike TV? Personally, if you ask me, that woman pisses me off." Scott, that's his boss, right? I mean,
first of all, Scott, things are going well. Scott, don't believe everything that you read or hear. As far as the Spike deal goes, it's still, as far as I know, still ongoing. So
yeah, Dixie's got a lot to worry about with a broken back now. So I mean,
she does, and she legit broke her back.
Wait, that's not like part of the story?
No, that's not part of the storyline. She broke her back.
Dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a big bump, though. I mean...
It was a huge bump.
Yeah, I saw your face. I was like, wow.
The thing that sucks about that is I had that front row seat, that literally ringside seat to watch that happen. And I had my video camera, or I had my phone out. But it was a phone that I had borrowed from a friend because my real phone, my everyday phone, was on the fritz, and I actually had to order a new one, and it took a couple days for it to come in, and I needed to go on the road, and I needed a phone, so I borrowed an old phone from a friend and activated it on my network. And then just used it for a few days, and then I had to delete everything off of it. I completely forgot that video that I took of Dixie Cable was on my phone.
Dude, you could have had a viral video with that, man.
I could have leaked it early, man.
Well, gosh, I didn't know that was legit. I thought that was just, part of the storyline. But, gosh, hope you're doing better, Dixie. Man, that sucks.
Yeah.
Way to, hey.
Kudos to her.
Yeah, I mean, way to take it for the company.
Yeah. And I always think that when non-wrestlers are thrown into situations where for a long time, she was the biggest heel in the company.
Yeah.
And when a non-wrestler assumes that role, it's really hard to get any retribution or payback.
Right.
They can't have Dixie's not going to have a wrestling match with somebody.
Right.
So I just thought that was a brilliant way to, because we tell stories of good versus evil, and every story needs that redemption at the end, right? The good guy, the bad guy gets what's coming to him.
Yeah.
And the good guy gets to stand there looking proud. And I thought that was a great way to do it in this scenario, this situation.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, kudos to you for taking that one, because it looked amazing. So at least it didn't look bad.
Nope.
I mean, it looked painful, that's for sure. Man, she was so tiny. All right, moving on. We have some feedback from somebody by the name of Steve. Steve sent us an email and says, "Why have we not turned the Middle East into glass yet?" Okay, Steve. Yeah, I get the joke, an old Dennis Miller crack, sand and heat makes glass. I gotcha. Yeah, honestly, I think we're doing our fair share over there.
No, I don't. I disagree with you.
Oh, okay.
Let me tell you. Shit or get off the pot is what I say. People are worried about this Iraq situation right now. What are we going to do? We're going to send some more bombs. We're going to, are we going to send more troops?
Right.
We are not willing as a country, nor do I necessarily think that we should be. I mean, this is a very delicate, touchy subject. We do not have what it takes to make long-lasting, serious change in the Middle East. We just don't. We're not willing to commit the manpower, and we're not willing to kill as many people that would need to be killed in order for that to happen, I believe.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to, if ISIS is the enemy, then our goal, if you are going to commit to that and say this is our enemy and we need to stop them, we need to decimate them completely, destroy them. And unfortunately, a lot of people are going to die if that is our decision.
Yeah.
I just don't think we're willing to do it. I don't think that we were willing to do it initially when we went into Iraq. I mean, the first day, if you remember back to, was it 2001 when the war started?
Okay.
We started bombing Iraq.
Shock and awe.
We were kicking the living shit out of those people.
Yeah, I think our guys got to Baghdad in less than a week.
And then we said, now we got to go house to house, and our guys started dying left and right, and you don't know who the enemy is, and these guys are good, but these guys are bad, but they all look the same. So I think we can pull out and let them deal with their situations. You've got 3 groups over there that don't like each other, that don't want to live together. Let them figure it out.
And then we'll deal with the winner.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you. My only concern is a majority of the unified sentiment amongst all of them is kill America. And so I do have a stake in that one. And it's like, okay,
but
so
the capabilities of
right. But so what's the level of our involvement? Is it just to keep their capabilities down? And how does that work? How do we make that work? You know what I mean? Is it through intelligence? Is it through, put up a wall around Iraq and Iran and Syria and every other country that hates us? I mean, at that point, we should just put a wall and a dome around our country.
Well, I am a libertarian, and I do believe that we should pull a lot of our military bases around the country. We have like 160 some military bases around the world.
Yeah.
We've got this problem at the border, supposedly. possibly pull 100, out of the 160 military bases that we have around the world? Couldn't we
just line them up along Mexico and Canada?
I mean, to me, that's a better solution than what we're doing right now.
Yeah. The hard part, and I get it, gosh, a lot of times people just think soldiers, all they do is fight, and that's not true. I mean, let's say that was the solution. Let's say we had American military lining our borders. What do you do when you've got the mother and 13 children trying to get into America? You can't slay them.
No.
So it's like it's not just an easy fix. I mean, it's something they've got to handle. They've got to, stop them. They've got to talk to them. They've got to, tell them, no, you can't do this. I mean, when does it become unrealistic? And I'm not saying, we should have open borders or closed borders. I'm not getting into that. We'll do that another episode. But yeah, like, what do you do? I mean, I would definitely prefer to see an America that's not involved overseas anywhere right now. I'd love to see us work on making us better.
Yeah, unless we're really willing to put in the labor that's required to make change.
And I think we all know what kind of steps it would take, and that's where you're going to lose a lot of innocent life, like you were saying, and that's, as a man who believes in people's innocence, I certainly can't agree with that, unless you could show me, every single citizen, children, women included, kill America, death to America. I mean, if they all hate us, and even then, now you're talking like North Korea. It's like, really at that point, you almost start to feel bad for those people. Like, you just don't know what you're talking about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up, because I really don't see a whole lot of difference between North Korea and various parts of the Middle East.
I just recently started to agree with that. I think it's not even fear anymore. It's just they're brainwashed.
It is a lack of education or miseducation. It's amazing. And another podcast that I listen to is Dan Carlin's Common Sense, which is a brilliant podcast. And he pointed out that, if you look back to the Middle East, Afghanistan in the 50s and 60s, you had women with beehive hairdos and false eyelashes and high fashion.
Sexy.
And these religious zealots came in and took over, and now everybody's uneducated, and it's like they live in the Stone Age. It's literally like these people live in the Stone Age. It's just...
Well, there's a clear disconnect between public education and parental education, or family, I don't know what you would call that, family education.
Yeah.
And, as an American, I think every family should have the right to teach their kids whatever they feel is important. And public education has the right to teach whatever they want to teach. And then, hopefully the wisest of us will teach our children the right things. But the problem is that's not working. Clearly, I mean, all over. There's some parents who just don't give a shit, and there's some schools who just don't give a shit. And it's tough because this is going to be our government in the next 30 years.
Yeah.
Where we still have to live in it, hopefully.
You're saying these kids are going to make up our government in the next...
They absolutely are. Somebody's got to.
But, yep.
And I know you're concerned that, that the people who are going to be making laws are people who, believe that Adam and Eve were the first two humans. I know, and I respect that you have a concern over that. And I have a concern that these are people who believe that... not all of them, but there are definitely people who have been brought up to believe that it's the government's responsibility to do everything. And that concerns me. And I'm sure that concerns you too, but...
it's also a concern of mine.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's definitely scary. It's definitely scary to me, like, wow. So I do take and I know we've talked about it on the show before, but I take a personal responsibility with my own children. But with this podcast, I want to take personal responsibility with the rest of the people who are within earshot of, hey, let's use our brains. Let's do a little more than just accepting for accepting's sake. And I know that sounds ridiculous coming from a person who believes in God, but I don't just believe in God because I just believe in God. I mean, there's more to it. It's a personal thing, and that's fine. But yeah, I take that same method of testing when it comes to my faith as well. I wish I could articulate it better for you so that you can understand why I choose to believe the things that I do. When I know that you don't, and that's okay. You don't have to. Just like just as much as I might get frustrated with, why can't Ken understand why I think the way I think?
Right. Yeah, I agree. But I don't think we choose to believe things, though. You don't choose.
We talked a little bit about this offline, yeah.
I don't just choose to. I can't bake my brain into believing that I can fly. I just can't do it.
Okay.
If I take a bunch of drugs, I might be able to do that.
No, that's a good point. So you're saying you don't believe that it's a choice. You are taking the evidence and you go, well, that's black and white. That's clear as day. That's what it is.
I think you're either convinced or you're not.
Okay. So would you say then? Because I love this conversation because you and I were talking about this on the phone the other day. Why is it that I do believe in these things? I don't feel like I'm unconvinced of the things that science has told me. I'm just still convinced of other things as well. I know that's a mouthful, but...
No, I don't know what the difference is between us. And again, like I don't look at... my religious friends, family, or anybody for that matter, and I don't look at those people as stupid. I don't, to me you hate the belief, not the believer. If that makes sense,
No,
when somebody gets cancer, you don't hate them, you hate the cancer.
Right.
And I sort of. And I understand that most Christians, yourself included, don't have corrosive beliefs. I don't think that your belief in a higher power is in any way a negative force.
Right.
In other people's lives. I don't think you use that knowledge or that belief.
I don't think God makes earthquakes because of gay people in California. I don't believe that.
Yeah. Well, not only do you not believe that, but you don't go around and
tell people that.
Tell people that.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's like, that's what's so frustrating, is I know that there are ding-dongs out there who do that. I think they would have been ding-dongs whether they believed in God, Gandhi, Buddha, or nothing. It doesn't matter. I think those were people who were just predetermined to be ding-dongs. My issue is even knowing that, and knowing that the rest of the world looks at people who have a belief in a higher power, I think you're one of the few that doesn't think that people like that are stupid.
I think the belief is stupid.
Okay.
I think that you're stupid for believing it. And this is going to sound, this is extreme hyperbole. It's
sure.
Like, but you can be so intelligent as to understand the processes involved and construct a nuclear bomb, and you can be so intelligent to do that, but still have the belief that you're going to get 72 virgins when you press the button.
Right. But see, again, a lot of that comes down to where does that information come from? Because the same could be said for Christianity. We could dig into what is known as the rapture. Mm-hmm. The rapture is a widely accepted belief amongst American Christianity, and up until about 10 years ago, I had found out that it wasn't even biblical.
It's not even in the Bible. It
right.
was a creation of the Catholic Church.
Now, you can imagine what kind of brain job that does to somebody like me, who is a big believer in logic and reason. And I go, wow, okay. Interesting. And so now, when I see things that mention, the rapture, I mean, my God, the Left Behind series was a multi-million-dollar production. So it's one of those things where it's like, wow, okay, so there are millions of people who subscribe to that, and even I was at one time. But I definitely got to a place in my life where I went, okay, I don't think that's really what it is, and I'm still okay with it. I mean, meaning I'm okay with still believing in God, because I don't think God was the one who said that. I'm pretty sure that was man, and now I have evidence that it was man who seemingly kind of made it up. I don't know. I know I get hate mail, but
here's where I stand on that. I believe that all of those words were created by man, all of them.
Right.
And so
yeah, no. I mean, Jesus himself, everything he said, he was a man. He said these things. I mean, I get it. But I know what you're talking about, though, like Moses and all that stuff. Like they're just men.
Everything. I mean, look,
No, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you one bit. I think we're
dropped from heaven.
Yeah, I think where Christianity stands on its defense when it comes to the books of the Bible. And again, remember, just for clarity's sake, for people who maybe don't understand what the Bible is a collection of books, and it wasn't always the Bible. It was put together, I think it wasn't at the Council of Nicaea, where they decided which books were going to be combined.
Why does God's word need to be voted on?
I don't think it should have been. But again, now you get into a deeper thing.
Why are there certain books that are left out of the Bible?
Yeah. Which to me, that makes me want to read them more. Like, what are you hiding?
Right, exactly. And I think there was somebody, I can't remember, around that time period, or maybe it was considerably later, but it was several thousand years ago, or several hundred years ago, that somebody wanted to go through and remove all of the miracles and the extraordinary claims from the Bible, because it would be more believable for people, and that more people would subscribe to it.
Right. I think, and this is considered. Yeah, Ken, and I'm going to say the one thing that I know you want me to say, and it's the one thing that I think is the most painful for me to admit. Not as painful because I'm not a Catholic, and I'm not slamming Catholics. I'm just saying they had the biggest flag for the longest time. But I think a lot of it comes down to, at the time, the Catholic Church had a lot more to gain, both financially and power. To keep people on a specific track of belief. And it's sad that for hundreds of years people believed the way they did. And you still see remnants of that when you talk to people who are very heavily into Catholicism today. Just the concept of Lent. I always mess with people, and I shouldn't do it. I'm an asshole, but whenever I got to give this up for Lent, I'm like, why? Do you even know why you're giving it up?
Right.
I'm like, I have a relationship with God. If I feel I have to sacrifice something, it's going to be between me and God. Let alone, I haven't felt Him ask me to do anything like that, so I'm not led to give up chocolate for 40 days or meat on Fridays or whatever. I know that my stomach and waistline would argue with me, but realistically, I'm always just like, do you even know why you do it? And so many of them are like, it's just what we do. And it's so frustrating. Now, don't get me wrong. If somebody has a love for God and they are led, for whatever reason, they want to make a sign of their love. We artists paint, musicians write songs for women. If somebody loves God that much that they want to make a sacrifice of abstinence of certain types of foods or services or goods or whatever activities, if you know why you're doing it, more power to you. I have no problem with it. I respect it. That's fine, as long as it doesn't become problematic for people. Mm-hmm. Do what you want to do. Because I'm an American, I'm like, have fun, live your life, be an American, be free. But when you don't know why you're cutting something off, to me, that is stupid. and I know I'm going to piss a lot of people off, but I don't care. That's what the show's about. But it's just one of those things where it's like it breaks my heart that for hundreds of years, like you said, the way of belief structure, and just, I'm not being a nitpicker, but it just happened to have been Catholicism for all those years. That was the basic national religion through Rome, through Europe, and then even here, which ironically we came here to get away from it, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But then with that, you've even gotten into more of current modern Christianity, what we now label the evangelical Christianity, which is not Catholicism. It's a more Protestant view, often more charismatic view, slightly conservative view. But even that, a good buddy of mine, Jamie, and I often talk about how, I think you're similar to age with me, but like in the 80s growing up, it was all about rock music. The devil was in rock music. Halloween, be careful on Halloween because there's, Satanists out, and it was
pagan holiday.
Yeah, it was such a big thing in the 80s.
Which is funny. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
It's kind of funny that when you look at Christmas today,
yeah,
almost everything that's cool and fun about Christmas stems from pagan rituals and pagan customs. All the stuff that people don't like about Christmas, like going to church, are the only things that are Christian related.
Yeah, no, I totally get you. I mean, I think
the trees, the presents, the Yule
that's all. What was that? Was that Druish or was that?
I think
was it Celtic?
Viking,
It was something Nordic, I think. I don't know. Scholars are going to be like, you guys are idiots, but hey, we're entertainers, we're not teachers. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. The tree is a pagan thing. The presents are a pagan thing. And pagan just simply means people against goodness and normalcy. If you remember that old movie Dragnet.
No.
With Tom Hanks. Oh my God, that movie was hilarious. You got to see it. Tom Hanks, Dan Aykroyd. It was an 80s movie. They redid Dragnet. It was so funny. But
I don't.
You're like, you totally derailed your point, asshole.
No, it's fine. But I was going to say that the Christians were actually called atheists by the pagans because they didn't believe in their multi-gods.
Sure.
How they were polytheists and Christianity was a
monotheistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, that just goes to show that, here's where I know you and I differ. And it's okay that we differ because it's just my personal opinion. But looking back historically and seeing all of these things take place, I don't doubt that what is considered current modern-day Christianity or current modern-day Buddhism or Muslim faith, they're all strange evolutions and manipulations and twists and turns of things that were based a long time before they got perverted. The question is, and this is where I'm coming from, where did it still come from? And that's what I like to study. That's what I like to search. That's what I like to know. And sometimes I get interesting answers that nothing has ever been made clear to me like, this is how it is, end of story, shut up. Nothing has ever given me that. But what I've gotten is little bits and pieces of history, and I go, oh, okay. And then I use my brain, and I think, and I ponder, and I reason, and certain things make sense, and certain things don't make sense. But I can honestly say that even with all of the ridiculousness that a belief in God, Jehovah, Yahweh, Allah, whoever you want to call him, it's still real for me. And it's still real to me, damn it. I was going to get there if you didn't. And I don't know why. I don't know why I can still do that. Why I can still believe all that and see things that I know people who want so badly there not to be a God and I don't even understand that. Like, why? Why do you want there not to be a God? Because it makes other things make sense? I don't know.
I just don't think that, and I'm sure there are people out there that feel that way, but...
Yeah, I'm sure you're not. I'm just, you made it clear how you feel, but...
I don't think that a majority of atheists, non-believers, don't want there to be a God. It would be, it would be great if I could just believe that there was this invisible man that created everything, that set these wheels into motion, however that happened. I just don't. Do you know what I mean?
But where does the idea even come from?
Where does the idea of God?
Of anything that is it because we create things, so we therefore think we must have been created? Is that how that works? I'm talking thousands of years ago, before Moses, before anything. Like, just why? Where do we just sit there and go, there must be? Is it a fear of the loss of loved ones that we want to assume or believe that there's something else so that they're not truly gone forever? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think of what could, if there is no God, where did we come up with the idea of him? And can we, or it, and where can we trace back to human belief of that? The earliest of Christianity or Judaism is what Moses wrote down, assuming nothing was written before that. But
I think I believe that it was a way to explain the unexplainable in the absence of scientific discovery. This process didn't get solidified until a few hundred years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think it was a way to control people.
I have no doubt that it was a way to control.
That is a very basic human condition, or a desire, is to have control over others, to get people to conform to the way that we are.
Where do you suppose that comes from?
I believe the survival mechanism.
Yeah.
If we get more people to form up into our groups and believe the way that we do,
we survive better.
We get more accomplished than if we're just going it alone.
And that just comes from experience, trial and error, that sort of thing? This tribe of people noticed that they got more accomplished when they followed a leader, as opposed to, I don't know, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff.
There are some very interesting books out there that go into this stuff in detail, though, why people believe the way they do. There's as I said before, Richard Dawkins has a host of books, and one of the best ones I think is called The Magic of Reality, where he discusses, belief, evolution, why people believe certain things. Sam Harris talks about this stuff a lot. He's a neuroscientist. He's got his PhD in neuroscience, so he understands the way that the brain works. And
yeah, I saw a really interesting documentary about they put like sensors on the brain, and they would put people in like a completely dark room, and they would some people would have experiences, quote unquote, and they would look at the brain and they would see where different functions of the brain that would happen, and a lot of it was, at least it appeared to be self-manifest, which is interesting. But again, that boils down, and that's not to say that they didn't experience it. I mean, I was on a podcast a couple of years ago with a gentleman who he doesn't exactly believe in God the way I do, but I know he believes in God very different than the way most people do as well. And it's very interesting to hear his take on things. I'll have to see if I can get him on the show. But he had just lost his mom, and he's an older guy, and his mom was older, but she was going through a little bit of dementia, a little bit of Alzheimer's, stuff like that. And he said that when she'd have moments of lucidity, she'd be back or whatever, and she'd say, "Oh, I was with your father, or I was remembering when you were a little boy, or and like there's that level of wonder and awe of, yeah, he could easily say, well, no, you were here the whole time, but in the mind, she went back, and who's to say that she didn't, in a way, really experience these things? Do you know what I mean? Like, and I know that I'm not. I'm only speaking metaphorically to a degree. We don't understand the brain. The brain is an amazing organ that, from what I understand currently, we only use a very small percentage of.
Actually, I just read something that said that's like old school thinking, and that
okay.
we use a majority of our brain or all of our brain. We need all of our brain to function.
Simply put, the point I'm making, and that's fine.
And I didn't mean to I'm not trying to say, no, you're wrong.
No, it's fine.
That's just, I thought the same thing, and I just...
yeah, that doesn't change where I'm going, but that's interesting to know, though. But the fact that we don't completely understand the brain, what we understand is that it's the fastest, highest functioning thing in our existence that we can understand. Or at least in mankind. Like, we still haven't quite gotten the computer processor fast enough to match the human brain.
Yeah, right.
But and they're trying, and that's a whole other episode, because what's going to happen when they make it. But yeah, it's just it's one of those things where I think the mind, the brain, the consciousness, I think there's a lot to that stuff, whatever that stuff is. And it's great that there are neuroscientists who are studying the brain, and it's great that there are, doctors studying the human body and stuff like that. But I love thinking about the fact that we have this self-awareness, and there's gotta be something, because I can't create self-awareness. It's like your eyeballs. Your eyeballs, actually, scientists say that your eyeballs see everything upside down.
Right.
But your brain knows to flip it right side up.
Yep.
Like, how crazy is that? I saw something else the other day that's just this is why I'm nuts, because I could go for hours on a completely ridiculous topic. But just eyesight. I was watching, I think it was a TED Talk, and they were talking about eyesights and illusions and what our brains consider things. I think it was like colors. What our brains consider color may not be the same color to somebody else, but they only know what they're seeing.
Right.
And that's amazing to me. It's all just, reflection of light and stuff like that. I love all of that stuff. And to say all that, to come back to some sort of formulated point, to me, there's something special about our individuality, our uniqueness, whether it has anything to do with a God, whether it has anything to do with just, total and complete randomness. But there's something amazing. And you're right, Ken, it could be something amazing to me because we just don't understand it.
Yeah.
And I totally give that all the credit it deserves. But I want to see people spend more time on that, because I'm really interested in that.
Well, I would just look back to human history and look at all of the things that have been answered by science that were once attributed to God.
Sure.
It's the God of the gaps. When we don't have knowledge, we plug God in. And then science comes along and says, actually, tornadoes aren't caused because God's mad that people are, what people are doing naked.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think there's something to be said for that. I think we need to get away from the God's doing this, God's doing that because of, or in spite of, or as a result of. I think we need to get away from that type of thinking as believers in God.
Well, but I'm saying that same mentality is now applied to you. It's just because we don't know the process or why that process exists or how it works. I don't understand why we plug that with God, knowing that we've been so wrong for the almost entirety of human existence thus far. Every time we have attributed something to a god, or I'm not talking, because he was mad or anything, just the functionality of everything. We've always been wrong. And why don't we say, you know what, we've been wrong so many times before, there's a pretty high likelihood that we're wrong about this again.
Sure.
As I said before, there are so many religions throughout the world, 999 other gods that have ever existed, 38,000 sects of Christianity, different variations of Christianity in this country. They can't all be right, but every single one of them has the possibility that they're wrong.
Sure.
But they can't be simultaneously correct because they make competing claims and exclusive claims. And
this is where it gets gray for me, because
that you're right and they're wrong.
Well, I used to say the same thing. And again, I remember asking my mom when I was a kid, well, Mom, how do we know that if we think that all these other religions are wrong, how do we know that we're wrong, that we're right? How do we know that we're not wrong? I thought this way. I really did. So, I'm not, how do I explain it? It's where I get into frustration. And I understand that I'm not defending Christianity. It's not my point. I'm not looking to defend Christianity. What the majority of the outside world sees as Christianity is the ridiculous idiots who screw things up. And it's like, I've gotten to a point where I'm tired. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I've gotten to a point where I'm so tired of trying to say, no, they're wrong, they're ridiculous, it's not about that. And just to even say they're wrong implies that I'm right. And I don't agree with that either. All I know is that at the end of the day, which is such a weird phrase anyway.
We got to come up with a new...
I know.
I literally was thinking about that today. I say that so much.
I do too.
And I annoy myself every time I say it, but I don't know a better way of saying...
I think it just means when we're ready to stop thinking.
Yeah, right.
So maybe that answers the question. When I'm ready to stop thinking...
I like it.
But yeah, ultimately, where I find peace, and I know that sounds so lofty and religified, where I find a point where I'm no longer stressed or concerned about the things that I don't understand is probably the fact that I have reached out at points in my life, fully believing that there may be something, there may be nothing, but if there is something, please give me something. Give me some sort of a connection, communication, something. And I have on multiple occasions received. Now, I can't
think that by any chance that could be confirmation bias.
Well, absolutely. And I don't deny that. But the point I'm making is why am I able to accept everything that science has brought to me, everything that for the most part logic and reason has brought to me, yet at the same time still have no problem, because I know that people think that I'm stupid for believing. Why would I want to be considered stupid? Do you know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't I just make it easier and go, well, fuck that, I don't believe that? Well,
because a large majority of the people in this country believe the way that you do.
So I have some sort of a support system, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
I drive down the street every day, and I am just floored by the number of churches that I see in every town that I go to. Just hundreds of thousands of millions of churches in America. It's just, it seems like there are more churches than there are Starbucks.
So do you think that is I see a twofold problem with that. What I see is that is power hungry people capitalizing on a human need. But then the second fold problem of that is there's a human need, and what the heck is that?
But I see so many of those people or those churches are not the mega churches that you're thinking of. It's
No. I even the chapels, bro. Go down south. Every couple of miles down the road, you see a little chapel. I mean, and they're whatever.
Texas, it is insane to me, the amount of churches in Texas. It's just one. There are more churches than there are houses.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. It's like, well, I mean, obviously, we can't deny what it is. I mean, it's a money business. It is a money business.
Yeah.
I see it. I was involved in, quote unquote, the ministry for a long time. And I got a little twisted and turned up, my stomach turned a little bit by some of the underworkings of it. And I was like, you know what, it's no longer about God. It's no longer about any of that stuff. And I got away from a lot of that. I'm not saying that all ministries are bad, but a lot of them really are power driven. And it's like, what the hell? But it wouldn't work, Ken. It wouldn't work if it didn't have the people who were needing or looking for something. And what the hell is that?
They need it, though, or are they told from the time that they're 2 years old that they do, in fact, need this? Or if you were to take your child at 2 years old and instead of saying and telling them this, what I believe to be a fairy tale, and you just, look at nature, look at science, look at, and you didn't teach him that we're broken individuals and that we need this guy had to be tortured and murdered a couple thousand years ago in order for us to be whole again. And, I just think that...
But take Christianity out of it. Take Christianity out of it. I mean, what if you're an Indian living in India? What if you are an Asian person? I mean, living in Asia. Like, what is this need that people have? Is it lack of education?
I do think largely it is a lack of education, and it's a lack of, I don't know, for some reason most religions, basically say, this is the way it is, don't think about it, just, here's how to think, or here's what to think, not how to think. You know what I mean?
Sure. Absolutely. I think there's something more to there, though. I think we're scratching something here, which sucks because we've already been doing this for an hour. But
and we have that cognitive dissonance. I mean, that's a very common.
Oh, and why? What is that?
This ability to believe, even though your brain says there's no way that this could possibly be true, you can still.
Why do we respond to that so well?
Believing it anyways.
But why do we respond to that? Well, what is it about human nature that we respond to? I mean, I love magic. I had a similar show a couple years ago where we did an expose on magic, and we had a really good friend of mine who's a magician, working actor, host. His name is Jonathan Levitt. He's an awesome guy. Hope he's listening. And he really broke down for me what magic is. Really what magic is. Because we kind of wanted to scratch the surface on, does magic exist? Is it real? Do people have power? Do they not have power? And we really got it down to the raw core of it, which is magic, which I'm ruining all essence of it by telling it. But I'm not a magician, so I don't care. Magic is literally providing the ability to give someone else a release of belief. Does that make sense?
Wait, say that again?
Being a magician, real magic isn't the tangible power physical thing that we see on Harry Potter. Real magic is, I don't want to know how you made it snow inside a building.
Right.
I want to enjoy that you've done it. Yeah. Somehow you produced it and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's what magic is. And if we can compartmentalize that as its own thing, even as a believer of God, where a lot of churches say magic is evil, oh, stay away from it. Maybe it's because it's like the wizard saying don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. I don't know. Yeah. But see, I'm not dumb.
and also it says in the Bible, that witches and wizards and warlocks should be put to death.
But that's just it. Clearly they existed back then. So there's even more then.
Oh, did they really exist?
Well, I mean, like, do you think that might have been something that was added later?
I just think that these were uneducated people that were beset by superstition and ignorance. And ignorance not meaning stupidity, just a lack of knowledge.
But again, I also look. I mean, okay, but if they did exist, then that would, because we know they exist today. People who claim to be witches and psychics and warlocks and all that, and wizards.
Marginalize those people because
some do. Some are very serious. But that's the point I'm trying to make. Is some people really latch onto that. I mean, you talk about the Kardashians. We have television shows about paranormal activity and psychics, and so there is that. People are still drawn to that. What the hell is that? Do you know what I mean?
It's a need to explain. I don't know why this happens, and rather than, I mean, when you really start to look at the way that the human brain works, and there are some great books out there. Read a freaking book, okay?
Hey, I read books, okay?
But there are scientists that can basically explain this stuff. This is why we're drawn to this type of behavior. This is why we are able to have that cognitive dissonance about so many different things. And then you've got skeptics who, like Darren Brown or Dr. James Randi, who was both of these guys are illusionists, and they basically say, like, here's how these mediums work, and they go in and they expose these people. They go to these churches that have faith healers, and they, James Randi literally went with a crew of people to a church that supposedly just thousands of people in attendance, and he intercepted a transmission between the preacher.
Oh yeah, I've seen
and the wife.
Yeah,
saying.
But that's clearly an example of those people who are manipulating the need that people have for their power gain and their financial gain.
Right, but in that instance, do those people really need that, or is it just something that was instilled at a very, very early age and is just hard to overcome?
See, okay, I like that. I like that a lot. And again, I could spend hours with this, bro. I really could. I love it.
Well, let's go.
I wish I could. Our listeners are like, oh my God, I've already gotten to my destination. We'll wrap it up in a little bit. But the one thing that I used to always say, I watched a documentary that exposed, what's the big guy? Benny Hinn, the guy who, real famous faith healer. He was on TV everywhere. You'd see him everywhere. He was always on every Christian station that you'd flip through in the channel turn. He'd be on there putting his hands on people falling down, off the wall stuff. And I watched the documentary where somebody basically, kind of did that to him, and they busted him for some of that same crap. And I remember saying to myself, wow, I knew people who gave to his ministry.
Yeah.
And I also know the types of people who just blindly, because they love God and they hurt for people and they don't know how else to help. So, give me money and I'll make sure that it goes to them. You know what I mean? So they give. And I think that to a degree with any charity, I think at first I was so like, wow, I wonder if God's pissed off that he's tricking all of these people. But at the same time, I kind of took a step back and I kind of felt, and this could be me, I sometimes attribute it to the voice of God, I don't know. But all of a sudden I got this understanding that even if this guy is a piece of trash, stealing money or manipulating, it's basically stealing money, the people who gave unknowingly gave out of a place of real want to help, real giving, real desire, real sacrifice. And I think for the person who gave, who never gets to know about the crap that guy pulled, I think that action that they took is still beautiful, that they gave of themselves. But this guy still needs to be shut down.
Yeah, but I just see, if those people, and this is my opinion, but if those people believed in things that were actually true, that time, that money could have been much better appropriated?
It depends. I mean, you see a homeless guy and you give the homeless guy money. Should you have not done that? There's people who say you shouldn't have done that. And there's people who say you should. I mean, when you give to any charity, I mean, there's that level of, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you want other people to know how much you gave? I hate that.
Right.
I hate, I give so much to charity. I don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good to know that you want everyone to know how much you give to charity. I'm sorry. To me, that bothers me. It's just as much as if I'm in a church and I see the lead pastor, talking about tithing, which in reality I hear that as give our church money so we can stay open. And, he makes it, I've seen the pastor pull out his, offertory envelope to put it in to be like, see, even I'm giving money. And it's like, dude, really?
I don't have a problem necessarily with people helping to remind others to do so. Like, for instance, Bill Goldberg. I was on a show with Bill Goldberg pretty recently, in the last month or two. And he told me about this. He had posted a picture on Twitter or Instagram or both, saying that he had given up his first class seat on a plane to somebody who was in uniform, somebody that was in the military.
Sure.
And he was basically, saying, I did this, and it was sort of a challenge to other celebrities or other people that are sitting in first class watching our men and women who fight for freedom and put themselves in harm's way to do the same. And he got a lot of flack from people saying, like, oh, you're just pointing to you're patting yourself on the back. And he said, like, the only reason I did it was to just send that message out to other people so that they could do the same, because that's how I learned of it. I think he said that Ellen DeGeneres had basically tweeted the same thing or something similar, and so that's how he knew. So you know what I'm saying?
I don't know the situation, but do you think Ellen got flack too?
I'm sure. I mean,
and that's interesting to me. So why do you think? Because you and I are implying that doing that is a good thing, and I agree, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Do you think that? Where do you think that comes from? Where people immediately respond with vile hatred? Is it because they feel like they're not good enough to do that, and they feel like you're pointing out how you're better than me? So I hate you.
Yeah, maybe. And I charlatans out there today, and so many, there's so many people out there who do pat themselves on the back so gratuitously that you become sort of cynical.
Yeah.
I mean, I sort of, like, when I have to admit that a lot of times when I hear somebody talk about their charitable contributions, I immediately start to think, like,
yeah.
Did you tell me that? Did you need to tell me a number?
Yes.
Or are you just literally patting yourself? They say no good deed is, there is no such thing as an unselfish good deed. I mean, you do things to either feel good internally, which is why I think people should do things.
Yeah, just to stop you, I mean, I definitely, I can't always afford to do it, but when I have had the opportunity to give, it really does feel better than getting, if you really can do it. And I won't give any specifics, but if you have the opportunity to give, it really does feel awesome. And sure, so maybe the selfishness is just wanting that feeling. But
that sort of opens up another can of worms for me. There's so many ministries out there, so many church groups out there that go into these countries that have no running water.
Yeah.
And they open up these, they reach out and they install pumps and wells and things like that for these people. And at the same time, these people who are largely uneducated are then instructed that, well, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, blah, 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 blah,
That's
blah.
why you can drink.
Well, and I don't necessarily, they don't even necessarily need to say that. It's just that those people mentally put those two things together. versus going into a country or into a situation where somebody needs something and you're able to give them. Just do it for the sake of it's good to do it.
Yeah. I think, and in defense of Christianity, I will say that I know that a lot of the times Jesus really did speak on that, where he was trying to motivate his people to do these things, not to tell them that it's God, but just to do it because you want to show them that you have this love and that you love people. And my thing is on that is, in a way, that's still, it's a motivator. And did Jesus say that to people because they otherwise wouldn't have done it?
Right, but these, the Catholic groups that go into sub-Saharan South Africa and bring them running water and then teach them that in a country that is ravaged by AIDS.
Yeah.
From that.
I already know where you're going, and I'm with you.
That condom use is worse than AIDS. And so these people don't use condoms.
Okay, so
not use condoms.
So here's where the American in me, the libertarian in me, says, okay, well, if you don't like that, what are we going to do about it? Because you're not going to stop them, so we should be doing it. Maybe.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we, as a people, need to bring them the water. And they say, why did you do this? And you say, because condoms are bad.
Right. Pay it forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love pay it forward. I love it. People need to get behind that and do more of it. Oh, my word. Your whole outlook on life would shift if you did something nice. You know where I get it pretty commonly, which is ironic, is Starbucks. I don't know if you go to Starbucks at all.
Yeah.
Every once in a great while, I'll pull up to the drive-thru and they'll say, you know what, the person in front of you paid for your order. Now, I'm an asshole if I don't pay for the guy behind me, right? But I love getting in that. It's like, but then it gets your mind going all day. Like, oh, yeah, you know what? This is cool. I love doing this. And, yeah, man, it just sets you on the right track for the rest of the day. Yep. Unless you're terrible.
Unless you're a terrible human being that doesn't care about it.
Yeah.
Or if you're poor and can't afford it, you can only afford
But yeah, I mean, that's it, man. So what's the takeaway today? The takeaway today is do something nice for somebody. And don't tell anybody else about it. Just do it.
Just do it. Or if you do it, just be vague. You don't have to give specifics. You don't have to give numbers. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
It's just the act of giving and the act of kindness is a positive thing. And I believe that we do these things not because God wants us to, but because it's good. And it feels good when somebody else does it to us. So, as I said before, pay it forward.
And I'll come from the religious side and say, I do believe God wants us to do it. But at the same time, no, I won't say that God wants us to do it. I think it makes God happy when we do it. But never, ever let that be your motivation. You should do it. Just to frickin' do it.
Yeah. Do we not, is not stealing, are we moral if we don't steal because there's a video camera watching us in the corner?
I love it.
Or do we not steal because...
It makes you wonder why the idiots do it when they know there's a surveillance camera in the corner.
Right. I think they can get away with it.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up. Thanks, everybody, for sending in your questions. Email pushthebuttonpodcast@gmail.com. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Hit us up on Twitter, pushbuttonpod. We really appreciate you guys for downloading. There's a bunch of you. We thank you so much. And we can't wait to bring you some more. We had a little delay here because Ken was on the road and all that, and you're still on the road, but we got some time together, and we'll be bringing you some more soon. So, Ken, do you have anything else for the listeners today?
Yes. Don't get hot.
Mr. Anderson.
Don't push it.